So I decided in my 30s to go back to school. If you're in your 30s considering going back to school, making a pivot, this is the video for you. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Sid Scott and I make videos about slowing down and ultimately just focusing on what really matters to you in your life and creating a life that needs no escape. And sometimes that means making choices and decisions that actually align with you, even if they seem a little bit scary or unconventional, right? But here's the thing. If you feel like you've missed your chance, you definitely haven't. Now, I'm someone who dropped out of college after 1 year back when I was 18, 19, and I told myself that maybe I'd go back, maybe right, but the plan was more or less to never go back and ended up joining the military at 19, and that set me on a education and career trajectory that I was good with. And then after that, I got out and started a business that didn't require me to go back to school necessarily either. But here I am in my 30s still going back. And here's what kind of got me. I realized that time was ultimately going to pass anyways. Am I going to spend it continuing to get better, continuing to sharpen my skills, continuing to learn new things or not? And could I be on board with spending a year, 2 years, or 4 years, right? However long it takes, depending on what you want to do. Ask yourself the question. But for me, could I be okay feeling uncomfortable in that environment again while building towards something that could ultimately open more doors for me? And when I put it like that, the choice kind of became obvious. Now, I do want to say this too, as a military veteran, I do have education benefits. So the cost isn't really an issue for me either. So that's really why it was just kind of hitting me now's the time to do it. Now's the time to do it. And it was also hitting me that having legitimate credentials and more narrow specific experience could be helpful. What I mean by that is there's a lot of grifters. There's a lot of gurus. And this generation coming up that has spent a lot of time on the internet, they can smell BS from a mile away. And so for me, it's I think it's going to be really important to have legitimate credentials and experience. I really do think that people are going to value someone who is not only just authentic and fully themselves, but also someone that actually has some legitimate credibility to back up some of the things that they're saying. And so I intend to be one of those people moving forward in the future. So what is it like going back to school at the big age of 30? What's it like being in class with Gen Z? Let's just talk about it, because maybe that's one of the things that's holding you back. I'll be real, going back to school as an adult is weird. At first, I got asked a couple times, what class was I teaching? People thought I was faculty. So it's a little weird sitting next to people who were in elementary school when you graduated high school. They're talking about a lot of different things like Lububus, right? I still don't even really understand what those are. And meanwhile, I'm over here wondering okay, our mortgage rate's going to drop enough to the point where it makes sense to refinance, right? So it's different. It's weird at first. But here's what I'm finding. Being older and having a lot of life experience is actually a pretty significant advantage. My younger classmates have come to me with questions and they're trying to figure out themselves, their identity. They're trying to figure out how to just manage their time. But if you already have life skills, going back to school is actually a lot easier. You're not there to find yourself. You're not there to party. You're there with intention. And that actually makes the process a lot easier. If you're someone who maybe like me, you kind of had a difficult time with school before, I struggled through high school, not because I wasn't smart, but I just didn't see the point of it. The emotional maturity just wasn't quite there. I didn't do well in that traditional school environment. And so like I had a hard time, right? And if you are someone like that too, who maybe had a harder time, you'd be surprised in your ability to do it now when you do have more emotional maturity, more emotional regulation, more capacity for stress, and more time management skills, and you actually have a clear focus and a clear vision and a clear plan, which maybe you didn't have when you were 16 or even 20, right? So it's a lot different going back now, and I find going back, being older definitely has its advantages. And the networking is great too, because I'm at the age where I actually get along really well with my professors. Now, I'm not talking about your first or second year of college. I'm talking about if you're someone who's maybe considering going back for a master's degree, right? Like that's a great advantage because your professors really do kind of feel almost like peers in a sense. And I think that they really appreciate someone who is engaged, who is serious, who is intentional, and they're willing to open doors for you. Now, I didn't really have any fears about going back to school, more so just like I was hesitant, but I've heard from some of my other classmates who are older than I am that like they had some fears about going back, and society kind of tells us that there's this linear path that we're supposed to follow, right? And if you don't follow it, maybe you feel insecure, feel bad about it. But I don't, or maybe even like if you don't follow that traditional path of like school, career, marriage, retirement, like it can feel like you failed, I guess is what I'm trying to say, if you go back like later in life. But I don't think so. And I think that if a part of you wants to do it, then maybe just give it an honest go. Here's what I want to tell you. It's not failing, and it's not like you're completely starting over. You're just adding to the foundation that you already have, because all of those years of work experience that you have, all of that life experience that you have, the failures, the successes, like none of that disappears. All of that still comes with you, and it actually makes you a better student, and it's going to make you a better person in your respective fields, like whatever field you choose to go into. So, for example, with what I'm doing, not only do I have the experience of building a business, which gives me a lot of different skills compared to somebody else, right? But I also have the experience of learning multiple languages and being in the military, right? And I also have some of my failures too. And all of that gets wrapped up into what I'm going to bring into my space once I have my license and my degree. So that's just something to consider. Even if you're just wanting to go deeper in the space that you're already in, I think that's a great move. So like for me, I want a professional license to practice mental health counseling and to be able to do therapy. And that's because I believe that there's a lot of good that I can bring to the space, but I can't necessarily do it without the credentials. So it makes sense to get them. And with that, I also know that I have so much more to learn and grow within it. And so maybe that's you. Maybe you've gotten to a certain level in your career, but there's an opportunity for you to take it to the next level. Don't be afraid of that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you're on the fence of going back right now, here's what I want you to know. The time is going to pass anyway. It's been passing. In 4 years, you're going to be 4 years older, or in 2 years, you're going to be 2 years older. Whether you go back to school or not, whether you finish the degree or not, whether you get the master's degree or the PhD or not. The question is whether or not you want to be 2, 4, 6 years older with new skills, more credentials, more opportunities, or do you want to be older wondering what if? And the cool thing is you don't have to jump in, both feet first. Maybe you're one of those people who likes to do that, but you don't have to do that. If the idea of going back to school feels like overwhelming, just start small. Take one class. Do one online certification. You don't have to commit to a full degree plan right away. Take it at your own pace, and don't let other people's timelines dictate your choices. Some people are going to think you're crazy for going back to school in your 30s or 40s or 50s, and there's going to be others who are low-key jealous that you had the courage to do it. But no one's opinion at the end of the day matters more than your own gut feeling about what is ultimately right for your life. So last thing I'll say is when you show up authentically as somebody who is willing to grow and learn and change, and that inspires other people to do the same. And that's just as, good of a feeling as getting a degree is. So, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if you knew it was all going to work out? What field or pivot or decision have you been curious about that you've maybe convinced yourself that you're too old for? Drop it in the comments because I'm willing to bet you're probably not the only one thinking about it. And if you're someone who's made a life change later in life than what's considered to be normal, you know, share some encouragement. Share your story in the comments. Now, I'm not saying going back to school is the answer for everyone. I'm also not saying it's the solution to maybe any of your problems, but I am saying if it's been on your mind, or if there's something else that you've wanted to study, something that you've wanted to do, like, don't let the timeline or your age be the reason that you don't do it.